So when gearing up for a conversation on AI, it's always interesting. It's also interesting to know who is thinking about AI. And so Mark, I want to start with you in the middle first, particularly as the chief economist for Fannie Mae. Why and how and in what way do you care as an economist about AI?
So I care for many reasons, but the first ones are, from the macro perspective, productivity gains is the key to growth, and growth solves a lot of social problems and fiscal problems. Number two, as a housing economist and a mortgage economist, I'm really interested to see how our lenders are adopting these technologies. And as I meet with lenders and we survey them, it's pretty breathtaking in terms of how many of them are trying them, the areas they're trying them, and the success they're having in adopting them. And then the third thing is, of course, I care about labor markets and what the impact is on labor markets.
Just as a follow-up, so when you talk to people, I mean, as an economist, I usually think of a CTO talking about AI, right? But as an economist talking about AI, how does it actually sort of work?
So it works very naturally because economists, we're very interested in technology. Inventions are awesome. We love to go online, play with new tools like everybody else. But what we really want to know is how is it being adopted in a commercial environment in a mature industry, right? And finance is a mature, highly regulated, capital-intensive industry. And it's just, you want to talk to people about how is it being integrated in the existing processes to improve quality and efficiency.
Okay, so you see, let's actually take it from there, right? When you look at AI, how do you sort of either predict or what are you assessing in terms of the business models or functions within financial services that are most likely to be disrupted? And for that matter, what does even disruption mean?
Thank you so much. First of all, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invite. It's been an interesting week in DC, very busy. So when we talk about AI and the applications of AI within the financial services, it is not something new, right? The financial services, given its highly regulated sector, very data dependent, and because in an intermediary role, we have our different player incorporated AI in different aspects. Think of hedge funds and passive funds when it comes to fixed income, especially given the complexity of constructing a passive income portfolio. Think of high-frequency trading, for better or for worse. They've utilized different forms of AI and data science and machine learning back in the years. So do we expect a disruption within those fields? It is very difficult to know. However, we understand that even when it comes to banking, there has been a disruption in the past with the internet and mobile banking and online banking and trading and all of it, which reduced the need to have branches, to have tellers, even though we still have them, because there is this financial inclusion aspect where access to artificial intelligence, access to mobile and smartphone is not available for everyone. Technology literacy is not available for everyone. So this has to be bear in mind. But when I look at a bank, which in our case, that's where the most of the work and data hosting and all of it takes place, you would expect that from a back office point of view, a lot of the processes will be automated and driven by AI. And the employees will focus more on overseeing the applications of these models, at least for the time being, because the level of development is rapid, right? It's neck-breaking. And bear in mind that ChatGPT was only launched less than 2 years ago. And we're at 4.0. So, and it still has its own problems, of course. But at the policy or a decision-making support tool, it is important. But also, even in middle office activities, whether you're a bank or an investment bank or any regulated industry or any highly regulated industry, any entity within the financial services industry, which is highly regulated, you can imagine they use the combination of SubTech, RegTech solutions with AI and LLMs. It will enhance the overall competitiveness. But also an important question, and I'll keep it short, an important question that we need to consider to measure the disruption is how will it be regulated? We've seen in the past how algorithms, so Web 2.0 was left unregulated, and initially people thought it's a net positive. It encouraged democratized discussions and all access to information, and then it turns out not so much, right? We didn't have we clearly policymakers across the globe, I don't mean any specific country, across the globe don't understand how algorithm works. No one really attempted to regulate it, and it ended up being used against the consumer, and in my opinion, at least my personal opinion, not my institution, it's a net negative on society. So with AI, you cannot afford to make these mistakes because the way the models are built, they're highly prone to mistakes, highly prone to biases against a specific segment of the society. It doesn't incorporate socioeconomic considerations that policymakers, governments should take in place, and doesn't really think, doesn't have the human thinking on how should you take care of the population. Just focuses on the maybe efficiency side, which is good, but it's not what we do as maybe policymaker and central banks. So I'll stop here and give it back to you.
No, I mean, what I was also taking even from that explanation is again, kind of circles back to what does disruption mean? Where I'm hearing about government and regulation as both a response to disruption, but also itself perhaps being a disruptive force and catalyzing different kinds of changes, and that is going to certainly be a matter of a lot of attention. Karen, I mean, like, you're at LinkedIn, so you're seeing, I'm sure, all kinds of fresh data, data in terms of what skills employers may be looking for, particularly as they're adapting to some of the changes that Yazid is mentioning. What are you seeing on the ground?
Yeah, sure. Thanks again for having me. So what I would say is, one, at LinkedIn, yeah, there's 1 billion members worldwide. So we are seeing a lot of data, 5 million updates, per second on the platform. We can see what skills people have, where they went to school, what they studied, whether they're getting promoted. And we can also see what employers are looking for. They're posting jobs. What are the skills? What are the roles? What new roles are they looking for? So this is what I wanted to share with you. So one is there's a huge imbalance of supply and demand in AI skills. Currently, even on our platform, less than 0.5% of all the talent of the 1 billion people is actually what we call AI talent. And then two, we think about AI skills in 2 dimensions. One is AI expertise. This is, I built a large language model, I cleaned the data, I'm training the data, blah, blah, blah. The other is, I work as a marketing manager and I'm creating content and I'm using an AI application to help me create content faster, better, and maybe do some stuff I don't feel like doing. So I can spend more time being creative and strategic. So those are 2 different dimensions of AI skills. Now you asked a question, what are we seeing? Well, one is increasingly there are a lot of employers looking for AI skills in the tech space, no surprise, the last year and a half. Maybe 80% growth in roles specifically looking for AI engineer, MLE. So we're seeing an 80% growth in job postings looking for AI talent. That's really that expertise talent. We are seeing, that's in the tech sector. Outside the tech sector, there's also a really rapid growth, but not as rapid, say 30%. So one thing is you're seeing this like diffusion across sectors of employers looking for talent. That is definitely the case. They don't have enough talent. They're starting to shop in their own closet and try to upskill software engineer into a machine learning engineer, which is very doable. And then what we're also seeing on the other side is a lot of folks who are in roles that maybe aren't technical, but recognize they need AI literacy to succeed in their role. And so what's been interesting is to see this really quick uptake of what I would call non-technical talent that is upskilling rapidly in AI exposure. So some of the fastest growing folks who are trying to acquire AI skills, like the literacy skills, are in like content creation, marketing, sales, because they know these are the tools that are gonna make them more productive, more efficient. They know that's what's gonna make them competitive in a labor market that is quite competitive right now for them. So I'll stop there.
Well, shifting from content creation, I guess.
Oh, and I didn't answer your question about what jobs, but you can come back to me if you want.
No.
Right.
We can
Did my spiel.
a couple more seconds. Yeah.
Okay, 2 seconds. So one is we're definitely seeing a fast growth in AI engineer, a lot of heads of AI, that role has tripled in the last 5 years, heads of AI. So a lot of AI-specific roles, but a lot of roles increasingly that are actually just looking for AI skills, but are not AI roles. So we always say, there was a head of internet role maybe at one point, but there's no head of internet role now. There's just roles that expect you to know how to use the internet. So.
Okay, well, I'm going to go then take a quick step back because when you're talking about content creation and marketing, and content creation, I was going to make the joke. Well, we create lots of things in Washington D.C. like rules and the like. Maybe not exactly the same kind of marketing. So, Kate, given the fact that we are here in Washington D.C., where obviously many people here in the audience and watching are affiliated with government and government employees, I guess, what does AI even mean for the government and the nature of government work?
It means so much. And already on this panel in the last 8 minutes, we've mentioned underwriting, we've mentioned coding, we've mentioned sales and marketing. I'll just ask, how many of you are using AI day to day in your jobs? So already it's transforming most of our lives. And where I see the most exciting implementations of AI is actually when you're building products around it. When you're actually building products around your customers. And for the government, your customers are often the citizens of the United States. And so how can you create better policies, better programs, better user experiences to engage with all of the different things that folks are using in the government? And I think there's just so much potential there. But you're already seeing the start. Every one of you mostly raised your hands today. And using AI as part of your jobs will make all of us a whole lot more efficient.
Well, I mean, efficiency is, a term that, has I guess pros and cons. I always sort of joke, well, what's the value of inefficiency? But certainly, when you think about the disruptive force of the technology, it's forcing people to upskill. It's forcing people to really contemplate or to even redefine what their jobs are. And what their role in an organization should be or could be. When you think about both, again, jobs and the nature of work, how are you thinking about AI there? And again, some of those earlier adopters, certainly I see over at Georgetown, there are different demographics in terms of ages and points at which people are adopting things. And how do you get middle management and others to use those tools in a safe way?
Change management is so much of what we do at Anthropic. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Anthropic, we have the Claude family of models. And primarily, up until very recently, we've been an API-based business. So companies that are looking to build and develop technologies on top of LLMs. We recently just released Claude for Enterprise, which allows you to just get started and try something right away. And it's been amazing to see how having something just off the shelf to be able to use makes it much easier to change manage organizations as they're shifting into this new world of this technology. You mentioned that there are all sorts of new jobs being created. A year ago, everyone was scrambling for prompt engineers. That's still an incredibly important role, but as the models continue to get better, the need for really, really scientific prompt engineers is becoming less and less. I think the same is true for these massive centralized AI functions. Very, very helpful. But as more companies are building their products actually around the LLMs and around the technology, you're actually seeing a shift where product leaders and product managers really need to be all in on AI themselves, not just rely on a central organization. You're nodding, I'm guessing this is aligned with what you're seeing in the market too. But how will things change? I actually think this is one of the most exciting technological shifts because the technology itself can help us all to get better at the new world. I find myself using Claude every day to figure out how to use Claude better and more effectively in my own job. And that's a whole new thing. People could use the internet to figure out how to work more effectively on the internet, but it wasn't necessarily the internet training us to do that. And this is where the technology, I think, is extra powerful and can accelerate the shift.
So, if I may, I absolutely agree with Kate. It is exciting. We've seen a level of investment in technology we haven't seen ever, I think, in the last 2 years. However, we have to be mindful that, number one, this sample group is slightly biased toward people who are tech savvy. When you take a step back and look at from a global scale, we have around 2.5 billion people who do not have access to internet. So, and even if you look at the IMF, colleagues at the IMF are here, Marianne. So if you look at the IMF, they estimated that advanced economies have around 60 to 70% of the jobs can be supplemented by AI, but you look at the emerging market, it's 30 to 40%. So there is the divergence between emerging market and advanced economies. We need to take this into consideration. In addition, at least in the context of financial services, where I work, Saudi, by the way, we fall in literally 50% in the middle between advanced and emerging. But you need to be mindful of the demographics. So financial services tend to be sensitive. Not everyone will be comfortable with dealing with an AI. Just like not everyone is comfortable dealing with an app. They want to go to branches. So there is an emphasis on just understanding the landscape where we're operating at and the opportunities to build on, hence my cautious approach to it.
I think you're absolutely right. And actually, this is the founding reason for Anthropic. We were actually founded on the idea that you need to be able to build this technology in a way that you can trust it, where you can understand what's actually happening and actually have some guardrails around it for safety.
So, I mean, Mark, you're an economist, but that makes you sort of half an evolutionary step up from us lawyers. So, I mean, so if you're going to like put on you enjoyed that. So, if you're going to look at some of the possible regulatory responses or approaches, I mean, what comes to mind given the fact that you're sort of in between, looking obviously at a highly regulated financial services world, but you're also looking at the economics?
Sure. So a bunch of things on that topic. One of them is the two places that matter from the regulatory perspective are Brussels and the US. So you see very different approaches that are going to happen. The EU, which is kind of dominated by the intellectual influence of France, always does a top-down. Let's try to conceptualize what the risks are. The emphasis is around protecting jobs and protecting current competitors. In the US, it's dramatically different. We have the common law. You see every part of the common law, whether it's contracts, torts, copyrights. In copyrights, it's a big issue. And then we have sector-specific regulation, right? So I think in the US, it's just a generalized technology, AI. It supplements other technologies in the workplace. And we're going to go by cases, individual fact patterns, try to figure out the trade-offs, right? In finance, fair lending is a very big deal. That's not necessarily a big deal in automotive, right? So every sector is going to have to do it, and we'll work our way through it. And I just want to add one thing on the employee side. On the surveys that we've done of consumers, since I have gray hair, I have to insert this. On the surveys we've done of consumers, we've seen that older Americans actually adopt technology. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but if you look at the adoption of the internet or refis, boy, it's adopted across the curve. So it can take longer, but once people get comfortable with the technologies, they want omni-platform. They want to be able to call a call center. They want to be able to go online. They want to be able to chat. They want to, they want the full selection, but they adopt them.
Yeah, we have the same. I was going to jump in and say we see the same thing. We have a lot of access to data. LinkedIn is part of Microsoft, so we can see how people are adopting technology generally. And it's actually not the case that only young people want to absorb AI. There are a lot of, I think it's more of a mindset. And what we're seeing is older users are adopting at the same rate as younger users. It's really the mindset of I'm willing to play around, explore, make mistakes, get frustrated, and try again. And then the other thing I wanted to mention, just in terms of the concept of adoption and diffusion, we definitely see in our data differences in industries that are adopting AI. Some are moving much more quickly, so clearly finance and what we call professional services, like consulting and accounting, and lawyers are also adopting AI more quickly than what you might say is, believe it or not, actually manufacturing, which is doing AI, but AI, not generative AI. So we see a big range. I don't know why I'm the one creating feedback. I'll try to avoid you guys. So we see a big range in terms of which industries. It's all that data. It's just resonating. We see a big range in terms of what industries are adopting the fastest. And I would say that education is one that's been really interesting because they're very quickly moving in that space, but there's a lot of disruption.
So we only have about 2 minutes, but I want to go really quickly through with each of you. What is not being talked about when it comes to AI that should be talked about? I guess we'll start with Anthropic.
I think what's not being talked about as broadly as it could be talked about is just how prevalent it is. 6 months ago, if I had asked that question, very few people would have raised their hands actually using the technology day to day. And it's really transforming all of our roles. We talk about how there are certain sectors that are adopting it more quickly, but you really do see this technology really everywhere you look now, and it's so exciting. So I would love to just even talk more about it. It feels like we're overwhelmed with the AI news all the time, but talk more about how it's impacting each individual on a day-to-day basis as much as it is.
So it's not peak AI yet.
I don't think so. No, I'm very long AI, obviously.
All right.
Okay.
So I guess I would want people to think about the elephant in the room is this going to destroy jobs? And yes, of course, there's going to be jobs that are eliminated. But if you look at agriculture, you look at manufacturing, the US percentage of the workers who work in agriculture is very small. It's like 5% or less. 100 years ago, it was way higher. Those workers are highly compensated now relative to their peers in the developing world. Why? Because they have access to technology and capital. The same thing is true in manufacturing. Giving the American worker more technology, more capital to work with protects their wages and frees up people to take care of other human needs.
For me, having the appropriate, being ready in terms of having the appropriate social safety nets in case of these developments are very difficult to measure, but also in terms of an overall risks of using AI, we're overhyped, we're excited about the possibility, endless use cases, right, for AI, especially in finance with all of the data. However, but it also can create endless risks, right? Shatters the confidence in the financial sector and the economy, right? Bad players can use it against you, and maybe we remember we've talked about it. If we have quantum computing with LLMs, all standard cryptographies can be broken. So all of these risks have to be taken into considerations. In addition, determining liability for any error caused by the AI. I know that you're
pointing at me.
No.
Quick.
We use LinkedIn,
Got
by the
10
way.
seconds.
We use LinkedIn all the time for training. Go ahead.
Representative Hill, yes.
Okay, very quickly. I would say the thing, everyone always asks me what are the new jobs emerging, but actually the big story is how all the jobs are transforming, where all of our jobs are changing. How we spend our time is going to look very different in 10 years than now.
Wow, that was remarkable.
Very efficient.
All right, great. All right, well, our time is up. So that was a great, very interesting conversation. So as I sort of help you guys off stage for the moment.